There were 20 things that I counted, 20 things that happened just in the last week that support what I've been talking about. And I guess what I'm really trying to say is, before this is all said and done, gold and silver will not be the strange cousin that you see once every 4 years. Gold and silver are going to be, I think, are going to come full circle to the way that they have been viewed for thousands of years, and that is as wealth. And these assets that we consider to be wealth now, I think are going to be looked at in a very different way. And in that light, having the utility of smaller pieces, to me, is worth it. And I think if you can afford it, it's worth it to pay to have the extra flexibility instead of maximizing your value into one giant bar, which lacks that liquidity. In and of itself, what Kenya did by selling their or buying oil from the UAE and from Saudi Arabia in the Kenyan shillings isn't as big of a deal, but you put it together with the numerous other things that are happening at the exact same time, and it becomes incredibly relevant. And Saudi Arabia, who's already formally applied to BRICS, who's already told the world they'll take other currencies for oil, now is applying for the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, which is a massive deal. They are a military organization as well. There is your protection right there from the West. This is, the pieces are being put into place right now, and you keep pulling out these pieces, or Brazil, the second largest exporter of corn in the world, now will only deal with China in yuan, or France buying liquid natural gas in yuan, or selling liquid natural gas in yuan. All of these things that keep happening are exacerbating and spinning the wheel faster and faster and faster of de-dollarization. And I think that is what is really, really, really been my focus. And, I'm afraid for the world they're growing up in, because you can see that the world is laughing at us and they are moving away as fast as they possibly can. Look at who's buying all the gold. Look at Turkey. They formally applied to BRICS. They bought more gold than anyone in the world for the last year and a half. Look at all of the countries that are joining. If you look at the percentage of gold in terms of reserves, and all of the countries that are joining the BRICS plus nations, they're 35 to 80% of reserves. It's insane. But the point of it is that you can see this, and when you look at the acceleration and then look at the dysfunction here, it's a matter of time before the wheels fall off. And I am going to sound the alarm. I have never seen these pieces come together in the way that they are, and a reaction by the public, which still represents less than 1% of total assets in the US, is gold and silver. And if it just becomes 5%, that's a 7 to 8 to 10-fold increase in demand in this industry. And like that, it's gone, it's over. And those people who will be late to the party will have no options but to buy things like ETFs. And what are the governments of the world doing? They're buying real physical gold. They're not buying gold within an ETF. They're buying the real thing. They're removing counterparty risk. They're pulling it off the LBMA. They're pulling it off the COMEX in record numbers. And not just gold and silver, aluminum and zinc and all of these metals that are needed to build an infrastructure, or corn or wheat or soybeans. I mean, look at the percentage of ownership that China has in all of these countries that are coming together against the Western hegemony. It is happening right now. And I think that this is something people really need to listen to and pay attention to. This is not about getting wealthy. This is about getting out of the way of what's coming and using gold and silver, which have been wealth for 5,000 years. Counterparty risk and the word systemic is going to have a whole new meaning by the end of this year, in my opinion, than it ever has. And the people closest to the information, well, they know this. The one thing that people have not put together that I have been screaming about is what happens when, bang, they all dump dollars at the same time. There's a term, Operation Sandman, that basically says there's 150 plus countries out there that have all agreed to sell dollars and treasuries at the exact same time. When that switch is flipped and the dollars come rushing home, creating a tsunami of inflation, and interest rates spike as a result, really spike, because the world has dumped dollars, what happens? And everything, which is inversely correlated to a rise in rates, is what makes people feel wealthy in this country. Stocks, bonds, and real estate. This is what scares me more than anything. People ask me, Is there anything that can be done to stop this? And the only thing that I can think of is a very interesting little known tidbit that more people should talk about. So if we go back to 2019, we go back to 2017 and the banks repatriating all their gold and massively buying at the Eastern European banks in 2017, 18, and 19 out of nowhere. It was because the BIS reclassified gold and levied it to a high quality liquid asset, basically tier one, the same thing as cash basically. So, but in 2020, the IMF, the International Monetary Fund, which is about 150 countries from around the world that was formulated at Bretton Woods, well, they said, we want a new system. We want a new Bretton Woods. I found that to be very interesting. And so you have the IMF, who is the Western side of the table, saying, well, if you read between the lines, gold will be the peg to make a new world reserve. This is what the folks in the East already know, and it's who can get to the table first, who can legitimize their currency first. And the question is, does it have to all blow up first in order to come in with a CBDC peg to gold? That I'm not quite sure, but what I am certain of is that gold is very important right now to the central banks. You just have to do what the big money is doing and listen closely, read between the lines, and I think this is the one shot, because what does every central bank own? Gold. And what is every central bank buying? Gold. What has been reclassified as tier one? Gold. Who's been accumulating it and repatriating it since 2017? The most sophisticated investors in the world. These are the important things to understand, to take a step back from the price, which is the greatest tool of misdirection. Sure, it's above 2,000, and I think people will look back on 2,000 and say, Jesus, I should have listened, I should have bought more. And it's not to get wealthy. If you own enough of it, you will be wealthy. It's to protect yourself from what's coming. And even though these guys have the biggest money in the world who are draining the exchanges, they're closest to the information. And that's what you need to understand, is that they know what's coming, and they are removing metal from the exchanges where all the liquidity is. When these people are removing metal, like we are seeing disappearing off of the exchanges, like 33 tons of gold were moved out of JP Morgan's vault in April, and in the night of the last delivery month, the last day of the delivery month for April was March 30th, and you're talking massive amounts of gold and silver were taken off the exchanges, 4.8 million ounces of silver just this week, and 10,682 contracts of gold were taken off. That's 1 million ounces or more. This is leaving the ecosystem.